I was juggling an armful of grocery bags, fumbling with my keys, when I first saw her. A small, frightened creature huddled inside a crate in the back of an old pickup truck, her large, sorrowful eyes locking onto mine. The way she stared at me, pleading, desperate, as though she understood I was her last hope, sent a shiver down my spine. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today, and if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. The truck's owner, an older man with a wary expression, climbed out and noticed me staring. He sighed, running a weathered hand through his graying hair. "She's been hanging around my farm," he explained, his voice tinged with regret. "Been getting into trouble, killing my chickens. I can't keep her, but I don't have the heart to just leave her to fend for herself." I stepped closer, peering inside the crate. Her fur was matted, her frame too thin, yet there was something striking about her, something wild. She didn't whimper or cower like a lost puppy might. Instead, she just watched me, still and silent, like she was waiting. "I'll take her," I blurted before I even had time to think. The man raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" "She's not like other dogs I've seen." I nodded, already reaching for my wallet. "I'm sure. I can give her a good home." After a moment's hesitation, he handed me the crate. "Be careful," he warned. "She's different." At the time, I assumed he meant she was just a skittish rescue in need of patience. I had no idea how right he was or how much my life was about to change. Something wasn't right. Back in my apartment, I set the crate down carefully and opened the door. The little creature hesitated before stepping out, her movements slow and deliberate. I crouched on the floor, waiting for her to come to me. "It's okay, girl," I whispered. "You're safe now." She crept forward, sniffing my outstretched hand. Her fur was incredibly soft, despite being dirty. I ran my fingers gently over her ears, and for the first time, she relaxed, nudging her head into my palm. "Bella," I murmured. "That's a good name for you." That first night, she didn't sleep beside me. Instead, she curled up in the far corner of the living room, eyes wide open, watching. There was an eerie stillness to her, not the nervous energy of a rescued puppy, but something else. Something ancient. I didn't question it then. I figured she just needed time. But as the days passed, little things began to unnerve me. Bella never barked. Not once. She didn't wag her tail. She didn't play with toys. She moved differently, not like a dog, but with a strange, fluid grace. And then there were her eyes, far too intelligent, too knowing. Sometimes I'd catch her watching me, her gaze steady, assessing. Not like a pet watching its owner, but like a predator studying its prey. I tried to shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Maybe she was just a unique breed, a little more independent than most dogs. But deep down, I knew. Bella wasn't a dog. A week after bringing her home, I woke in the middle of the night to an odd sound. A sharp, high-pitched yip, almost like a bird's call, echoed through my apartment. I bolted upright, my heart pounding. Bella was standing by the window, her body tense, ears erect. Her head tilted slightly as she listened to something I couldn't hear. "Bella," I whispered. Slowly, she turned to look at me. That's when I saw them, her eyes, glowing amber in the dark. A chill ran down my spine. The way she stood, the way her pupils narrowed, she wasn't just alert. She was wild. I reached for my phone, fumbling to turn on the flashlight. The beam landed on her face, illuminating her fur. For the first time, I noticed her tail long, bushy, almost fox-like. Her limbs were too slender, her face too pointed. I swallowed hard. She wasn't a German Shepherd. She wasn't a dog at all. The next morning, I called Dr. Collin, the local veterinarian. When I explained Bella's unusual behavior, she agreed to check her out. I drove to the clinic with my heart in my throat. As we arrived, Dr. Collin's eyes widened the moment she saw Bella. She didn't even need to examine her. "This isn't a dog," she said quietly. I felt the world tilt beneath me. "What do you mean?" I managed to choke out. Dr. Collin sighed. "She's a coyote, possibly even a hybrid. But if she is, you're in trouble. It's illegal to keep her." My blood ran cold. I had rescued her. I had fed her, cared for her, earned her trust. And now they wanted to take her away? No, I said firmly. I won't give her up. Dr. Collin gave me a sympathetic look. You don't have a choice, Sarah. If the authorities find out, they'll confiscate her. She won't be placed in a shelter. She'll be euthanized. I looked down at Bella, who was watching me with those sharp, intelligent eyes. She trusted me, and I wasn't about to betray that trust. That night, I packed my things. If they were coming for Bella, I wouldn't be here when they arrived. As I zipped up my bag, Bella nudged my arm, as if sensing my urgency. We're leaving, I whispered, together. She didn't wag her tail, she never did, but she pressed her head against my side, a silent confirmation. As I stepped out into the cold night, Bella trotted beside me, her movements silent, precise. I didn't know where we were going. I didn't know what came next. All I knew was that I had saved Bella once, and I'd do it again, no matter what it took. Sarah had known this day was coming. The moment Dr. Collin had told her the truth about Bella, the weight of the situation had settled in her chest like a stone. She had spent the past few weeks researching wildlife laws, searching for a loophole, a way to keep Bella legally. But deep down, she knew the odds were against her. Now, standing in her small apartment, she watched as Carol from Wildlife Services took meticulous notes on a clipboard, scanning the space, observing Bella's every move. Bella sat calmly near the couch, her piercing amber eyes locked onto Carol with quiet intelligence. She wasn't aggressive or fearful, just observant, as if she understood the gravity of the moment. Carol finally looked up and sighed. Sarah, I won't sugarcoat this. Bella is not just a large dog. She's a full-blooded Canadian black wolf. Keeping a wolf as a pet is illegal in this state. Sarah's stomach twisted. But she's not wild, she argued. She's been with humans since she was a pup. She wouldn't survive out there. Carol softened slightly, kneeling to get a closer look at Bella. The wolf leaned forward, sniffing Carol's hand before pressing her nose against it in a brief moment of trust. Carol hesitated, then gently stroked the thick fur behind Bella's ears. I can see she trusts you, she admitted. But that doesn't change the law. Sarah clenched her fists. There has to be a way. What if I register her as an exotic pet? What if I move to a state where it's legal? Carol shook her head. Even if you move, you'd need to meet strict requirements: land, proper enclosures, permits. This apartment, it's not enough. I can't legally approve this. Sarah's throat tightened. So what happens now? Carol hesitated, flipping through the paperwork on her clipboard. Normally, she would be relocated to a wildlife sanctuary. Sarah's chest constricted. You mean a cage? Carol didn't respond, but the silence was enough of an answer. Bella, sensing Sarah's distress, stood and pressed her massive head against Sarah's side, a quiet show of comfort. Sarah ran her fingers through the thick fur, drawing strength from the warmth of the creature she had come to love more than anything. I won't let that happen, she whispered. Carol stood, tucking the clipboard under her arm. Sarah, I don't want to take her from you, but I have to submit this report. If there's a way to make this work, we need to find it fast. As soon as Carol left, Sarah collapsed onto the couch, Bella curling up beside her. She buried her face in the wolf's fur, fighting back tears. This wasn't fair. Bella wasn't a danger to anyone. She wasn't wild. She was hers. And Sarah would do whatever it took to keep her. The next morning, Sarah's mind was set. She wasn't going to wait for the authorities to decide Bella's fate. She was going to take action. She grabbed her laptop and started searching. Sanctuaries, legal loopholes, relocation options, anything that could keep Bella out of a cage. Hours passed, and then finally, a breakthrough. A small sanctuary in Montana specialized in rescued wolves and hybrids. Unlike other facilities, it allowed caretakers to remain involved in their animals' lives. The problem? It was over 1,000 miles away, and the process to apply was extensive. Sarah ran a hand through her hair. She didn't have a choice. If Wildlife Services came back with an order to remove Bella, she needed a backup plan. She picked up the phone and dialed the number listed on the sanctuary's website. A woman answered. Howling Ridge Wolf Sanctuary, this is Dorothy. Sarah swallowed. "Hi, my name is Sarah Johnson. I need help." She explained everything: how she had rescued Bella, how she had only recently learned the truth, and how authorities were threatening to take her away. Dorothy listened carefully before responding. "Sarah, I won't lie to you, this won't be easy. But if you're willing to fight for her, we might have a chance." Sarah's breath caught. "You mean she can come there?" "She can, but it's a process. You'll need to get her legally reclassified as a captive-born animal instead of a pet. That takes paperwork and legal approvals." Sarah felt a flicker of hope. "Tell me what I need to do." For the next 2 weeks, Sarah threw herself into the battle. She worked with Dorothy to file the necessary paperwork, gathering Bella's medical records and proof that she had been raised in human care. She met with a wildlife lawyer who helped draft an appeal. But time was against them. One evening, Sarah received a call from Carol. "Sarah, I just got word from my supervisor. They're sending officers to relocate Bella at the end of the week." Sarah's blood ran cold. "No, you said we had time. I bought you as much time as I could. But unless you have a legal alternative now, my hands are tied." Sarah hung up and turned to Bella. The wolf lifted her head, ears twitching, sensing her distress. "We're out of time," Sarah whispered. She grabbed her car keys. They had one option left. That night, Sarah loaded Bella into the back seat of her car and drove. With every mile, the city lights faded into the distance. She knew what she was doing was illegal. She knew the risks. But she also knew one thing for certain: if she didn't run, Bella would spend the rest of her life behind bars. It wasn't just about saving a wolf. It was about saving her family. The open road stretched ahead. The only question now was, would they make it? Will Sarah and Bella make it to Montana before Wildlife Services catches up? Will the sanctuary be able to protect Bella from being taken? Let us know what you think in the comments. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support more stories of love, resilience, and the fight for second chances. Because sometimes, the greatest bonds are worth breaking the rules for. Sarah never expected a simple online post to change everything. She had been exhausted, drained from fighting an uphill battle to keep Bella, the wolf she had unknowingly raised as a dog. The regulations were suffocating, the deadlines impossible. Her savings had dwindled to nothing, and no matter how hard she worked, it never seemed to be enough. But then, something incredible happened. Her story spread like wildfire. People from all over reached out, strangers who had never met Bella but felt her story deep in their hearts. Volunteers arrived, some carrying tools, others with knowledge of wildlife care. Donations poured in, and suddenly, she wasn't alone in this fight. For the first time in weeks, she felt hope. The work had to be done fast. The 6-week deadline loomed over her like a storm cloud. Every day was a battle against time, but the outpouring of support fueled Sarah's determination. The fencing was the first priority. Strong enough to keep Bella safe, but spacious enough to give her freedom. Volunteers worked tirelessly, pounding posts into the ground, stretching wire, and reinforcing weak spots. A group of carpenters arrived next, offering to build a shelter fit for a queen, a spacious den insulated from the harsh elements. A veterinarian specializing in exotic animals showed up with enrichment plans, helping Sarah design spaces where Bella could dig, climb, and roam without feeling confined. Even Carol, the wildlife officer who had once been ready to take Bella away, seemed impressed by the progress. "You're proving you're willing to do whatever it takes," she told Sarah during one of her inspections. "That's not something I see every day." Sarah didn't stop. She couldn't stop. Every morning, she woke up at dawn, working alongside volunteers, shoveling, hammering, digging, lifting, doing anything and everything to make sure Bella had the home she deserved. And all the while, Bella watched. She'd been distant at first, confused by Sarah's earlier withdrawal. But now, she stayed close, always observing. At night, when Sarah collapsed onto the old couch inside the mobile home, Bella would curl up at her feet, resting her massive head against Sarah's leg, offering silent reassurance. They were in this together. The last week arrived too quickly. Carol and her team showed up for the final inspection, clipboards in hand, eyes scanning everything critically. Sarah stood by, her hands clenched, her breath shallow as she waited. Bella, sensing her tension, stood beside her, ears pricked, her golden eyes flicking between the officers. Carol walked the perimeter, testing the fencing, checking the gates. She examined the shelter, noting its sturdy design. She asked about feeding routines, emergency plans, veterinary care. The final moment came when she turned to Sarah, holding the clipboard close to her chest. "I have to be honest," she said, her voice unreadable. "I wasn't sure you could do it." Sarah swallowed hard, bracing for the worst. "But you did," Carol continued, a rare smile appearing on her face. "Everything meets the requirements. Bella stays." The words hit Sarah like a wave. She felt the tension drain from her shoulders, her vision blurring with tears. Bella let out a soft huff, pressing against Sarah's side, as if she understood what had just happened. They had won. That night, as Sarah sat on her porch with Bella beside her, she let the weight of the past few months settle. She had almost lost everything, but in the fight to keep Bella, she had found something she never expected: community, purpose, and a love that went beyond species. Bella wasn't just an animal she had rescued. She was family. And now, thanks to the kindness of strangers and the power of determination, she finally had the home she deserved. As the stars twinkled above, Sarah scratched behind Bella's ears and whispered, "We did it, girl!" And for the first time in a long time, she believed it. The final weeks leading up to Carol's last inspection felt like a dream, a mix of exhaustion, adrenaline, and relentless determination. Volunteers showed up daily, armed with tools, supplies, and an unwavering belief in Bella's right to stay. The enclosure was finally taking shape. Every morning, I woke up before sunrise, slipping on my work gloves and heading outside before my first cup of coffee. The sounds of hammering, drilling, and laughter filled the crisp air as we built the space Bella deserved. She watched from her temporary enclosure, her golden eyes following every movement, tail wagging whenever I came close. It was as if she knew. She wasn't just watching us. She was waiting, hoping, trusting. And that made me work even harder. The night before Carol's inspection, I sat outside Bella's temporary enclosure, watching the moonlight cast shadows over her thick fur. She pressed against the fence, her silent reassurance warming me more than any words could. I reached through the bars, running my fingers behind her ears. "We did it, girl," I whispered. "All of us, together." Bella huffed softly, nuzzling into my hand, her trust in me unwavering. I had spent months fearing this moment, dreading the idea of losing her. But now, for the first time, I felt something different. Hope. This wasn't just about keeping Bella anymore. It was about everything we had built, the people who had come together, the strangers who had become family, the incredible outpouring of kindness that had transformed an impossible challenge into reality. I wasn't just fighting for Bella's home. I was fighting for ours. Carol arrived early the next morning, clipboard in hand. She was all business as she stepped out of her car, her sharp gaze scanning the new enclosure. I held my breath. Everything had to be perfect. The reinforced fencing, the drainage system, the enrichment features, the shelter, all of it had been designed with Bella's well-being in mind. But would it be enough? Carol walked the perimeter, testing the gates, checking the foundations. Volunteers stood nearby, their faces anxious but hopeful. The entire world seemed to shrink into this moment, the weight of months of work pressing on my chest like a boulder. Then she turned to me. "You did it, Sarah." The words barely registered at first. "The enclosure meets all the requirements. Bella can stay." A rush of relief flooded through me so fast my knees nearly buckled. Cheers erupted from the volunteers, people clapping and hugging. Bella, sensing the energy, let out a joyful howl, her head tilted toward the sky. I dropped to my knees beside her, wrapping my arms around her thick fur, tears spilling freely now. "You're home, Bella. You're finally home." That night, as I sat on the porch watching Bella explore her new space, I realized just how much my life had changed. What had started as a simple act of kindness, taking in what I thought was a stray dog, had led me down a path I never could have imagined. I had fought against impossible odds, leaned on the kindness of strangers, and found strength I never knew I had. Bella wasn't just a wolf I had rescued. She was family. And thanks to an entire community of people who believed in something greater than themselves, she would never have to fear being taken away again. As the stars twinkled above, Bella trotted toward me, pressing her massive head against my shoulder. "We did it, girl," I whispered. "All of us." And as the wind carried her soft howl into the night, I knew this wasn't the end of our journey. It was just the beginning. Standing in the middle of Bella's newly finished enclosure, covered in dirt, sweat, and exhaustion, I let out a shaky breath. Months of fear, hope, and relentless effort had all led to this moment. Volunteers, strangers who had become like family, stood beside me, watching as Bella cautiously stepped into her new home. She sniffed the air, her golden eyes scanning the vast natural space we had built for her. The once abandoned pup, now a majestic wolf, had finally found where she belonged. Carol, the wildlife inspector, walked the perimeter of the enclosure, clipboard in hand. Every step she took made my stomach twist. She measured the fencing, checked the underground barriers, examined the shelter, and tested the locks. I followed her, heart pounding, trying to read her expression. Finally, she stopped and turned to me. "This is impressive work," she said, scribbling something onto her clipboard. I barely dared to breathe. "You've met all safety regulations, and I can see you've put real thought into creating a natural environment," she continued. Then she reached into her bag, pulled out an official document, and handed it to me. My wildlife rescue license. The weight of months of struggle, doubt, and endless work hit me all at once. Tears spilled down my cheeks as I clutched the paper to my chest. Behind me, Bella let out a deep, joyous howl, as if she knew what had just happened. Around us, the volunteers erupted into cheers. Strangers who had come together for a cause bigger than themselves were now family, celebrating not just a victory, but a transformation. We had done it. The next chapter begins. That night, as we held a small celebration, I watched Bella explore every inch of her new enclosure. She tested the pond, rubbed against trees, and marked her territory. She was home. I thought this was the end of our journey, but it was only the beginning. My experience with Bella had opened my eyes to something bigger, the overwhelming number of wild animals who needed help. Not long after, I received a call about 3 abandoned wild boars. They had been taken in as exotic pets, only to be discarded when they grew too large. Authorities didn't know where to place them, and without a proper sanctuary, they would likely be euthanized. I hesitated, knowing how much work I had already put into Bella's home. Then I looked at her standing tall, thriving, living proof that giving animals a second chance could change everything. I couldn't say no. With the help of my growing online community, I built another enclosure. Bella watched from a distance as her new neighbors arrived. At first, she seemed wary, pacing the perimeter, sniffing the air. But soon, curiosity took over, and she observed them with a quiet understanding. The sanctuary was no longer just hers. It was growing. Running a sanctuary isn't easy. Every day brings new challenges, feeding the animals, repairing enclosures, raising funds, ensuring veterinary care. There are moments of exhaustion, frustration, and doubt. But then there are the moments of pure joy watching an animal heal, witnessing their first steps toward trust, knowing they are safe. Bella has grown into a magnificent wolf. Confident, strong, and untamed, yet still carrying that spark of trust we built when she was just a frightened pup. At night, I sit on my porch and watch her patrol her home. She moves with grace and purpose, every inch the wild creature she was born to be. But when our eyes meet, there is still that flicker of recognition, the bond that started it all. Our social media following continues to grow, and with it, so does our ability to help more animals. I've started educational programs teaching people about wildlife conservation. Bella has become an ambassador, not just for wolves, but for all wild animals, helping people understand the delicate balance between humans and nature. Looking back, I never imagined that stopping to help a frightened pup on the back of a truck would lead me here. But love has a way of changing our paths. Thanks to Bella, I'm not just the woman who rescued a wolf. I'm someone making a difference. And Bella? she's living her best life, wild, free, and home. Because sometimes the most unexpected decisions turn out to be the best ones of our lives. Life has a way of leading us down unexpected paths. Sometimes we make choices on a whim, not realizing they will change us forever. That's what happened when I decided to rescue Bella, a pup I thought was just a dog, only to discover she was a wolf. In the beginning, I was unprepared, overwhelmed, and terrified that I had made a mistake. But as time went on, I realized that Bella hadn't just needed saving, I did too. The experience of fighting for her, building her a home, and ultimately creating a sanctuary taught me lessons I never expected about resilience, responsibility, and the power of community. This story isn't just about me and Bella. It's about how we all encounter situations that challenge us in ways we never saw coming. We often find ourselves standing at a crossroads, faced with decisions that seem impossible. Maybe it's an unexpected career change, a personal loss, or a challenge that feels too big to overcome. But just like I fought for Bella, we all have the strength to fight for what matters, even when the odds seem stacked against us. One of the most powerful lessons from this journey was the realization that we don't have to face challenges alone. When I first learned that Bella was a wolf and that I might lose her, I felt completely helpless. No amount of love could change the laws or build a safe home for her overnight. But when I shared my story, people responded. They didn't just sympathize, they acted. Strangers donated money, time, and resources to help me achieve what once felt impossible. That's the beauty of community. When people come together, they can create miracles. This lesson applies to everyday life in so many ways. How often do we struggle in silence, believing that our problems are ours alone to bear? Whether it's mental health, financial struggles, or personal hardships, we tend to retreat inward, convinced that no one else will understand. But the truth is, there is always someone willing to help. Sometimes, all we have to do is ask. Bella also taught me the importance of adaptability. I didn't set out to become the owner of a wolf sanctuary. I had no knowledge of wildlife rescue or conservation. But when faced with the challenge, I had two choices: give up or grow. Life is unpredictable, and sometimes the things we think will break us are actually the things that build us into who we are meant to be. Instead of fearing the unknown, we should embrace it. Growth comes from discomfort, and the greatest transformations often begin with uncertainty. At the end of the day, Bella's story is about more than just one rescued wolf. It's a reminder that love, perseverance, and community can overcome the most daunting challenges. We all have a Bella in our lives, something worth fighting for, something that pushes us beyond our limits. The question is, when the time comes, will we have the courage to fight for it? If this story touched your heart, let me know in the comments below. Like, share, and subscribe for more tales that inspire and move us. Thank you for being part of this journey. See you in the next story.